What if your top salesperson was 1,000 times more efficient? And what if a limitless digital workforce helped your number one find leads? A super team working 24/7 on their behalf, thinking, acting, and solving complex tasks so more deals closed. That would be one very efficient sales leader. Now, imagine if every person on your team worked to the power of 1,000. They can with Agentforce, the powerful AI from Salesforce. Learn more at salesforce.com.
Welcome to the Women in Product podcast. My guest today is Laura Schaffer, Vice President of Growth at DigitalOcean, a cloud platform company that simplifies cloud computing so businesses can spend more time building and scaling innovative applications. It's particularly popular with SMBs and startups. She leads a cross-functional growth R&D and marketing team to execute across the funnel and is responsible for self-serve revenue and demand generation. Prior to DigitalOcean, she built growth and product teams at companies like Twilio, Amplitude, and Bandwidth, bringing a depth of experience in product-led growth and experimentation. Laura's passion lies in creating seamless, powerful experiences that elevate both technology and the people who use it. Welcome to the podcast, Laura.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to talk to you because what you're doing today is so relevant to what's happening, especially with development of AI and more people becoming entrepreneurs. So first, to get started, I would love to get a recap of your career journey. You've been doing growth for most of your career, is that right?
Yes, before we even knew what to call it. So my very first real kind of job, so to speak, was in sales. I had been given advice, and I always really value and appreciate this, to start in a role where you're talking to customers because it sticks with you the rest of your life. And I can attest to that for those of you who are just starting out. But I literally was just saying the same thing over and over again in my talk track, right? Very often it was similar questions, similar answers. And we were small enough at the time. This is at a company called Bandwidth, which is now public. But when I joined, it was like 50 people. And so we're small enough that I could go to the GM and just say, hey, I'm saying the same thing over and over. What if we just put that into a self-serve experience? People could just get the answers, and then he could just buy while we're sleeping. Like, I remember just saying that. And he was like, yeah, that sounds good. Why don't you go do that? And there was no growth or PLG at the time. And this is back in 2010 or 2011. And there just wasn't a notion of it, but the concept felt right. And that was my first sort of taste of growth. It's just a really exciting and fun one where you think about what are ways that I can build experiences to help people get to value quickly and self-serve. And it's a really powerful space that's grown over the years. And so I was able to kind of carry that kernel with me and really expand that when I started the growth team at Twilio, which is what I did after I was at Bandwidth for 4 years. It's just a super fun space for me, and I really love to be in it.
We find that there's still a little bit of confusion sometimes about the definition of what product growth is. So there's growth, but then there's product growth. So how do you usually explain it?
The simplest term I can use to explain it is that growth product effectively refers to product that you build to sell other product. So let's make that real for a second, because that's quite abstract. We all use self-serve tools and self-serve products every day. We log in, or maybe we sign up for the first time. We hopefully get some value. Sometimes we spend money or we upgrade. A growth product team is paying deep attention to your user journey. They're understanding what stops you from getting value, what causes friction in your experience, what causes you to upgrade, what causes you to not upgrade, what causes you to cancel, what causes you to come back. And they're paying deep attention to those things, and they're building product experiences to help give you more value. So they might be reducing effort it takes for you to sign up. They might be simplifying your onboarding experience or making it relevant. They might be using AI to do that, especially now. I've also built marketplaces to help spur use of new products by crowdsourcing different ideas that customers have, right? Allowing them to share. I've built developer tools that help reduce complex developer products and make it easier to adopt. It's one of the reasons I do love growth, is that a growth product team can build anything because you're not constricted to a particular kind of block of code or purpose. Your anchor point is customer value. And so there's so many things that you can build and do, especially if you're working at a company that has multiple products.
Could you explain what the value proposition is of DigitalOcean?
We're basically here to make something super complex, which is this hardware infra stuff, super easy. Maybe even a little fun sometimes. You see a bunch of dolphins and sea puns around our site. SMBs are full of super busy people. We know how fast companies are moving these days. They got all kinds of things on their plate. And thinking about hardware, how should we buy? What's the pricing on that? Can we trust that it's going to be something we can count on to stay stable or to not change over time, to not get an invoice that's 10 pages long? That's real. What we do every day is we think about those SMBs and how do we get them to not have to think about that part, just cover that part for them, make it really easy to get started, really easy to just maintain and manage, something they can just set, trust, and allow them to go do the things that they want to do with their time so that they can focus on innovating. We provide simple tools for storing data, for training and running AI models, hosting applications securely. We do all those hosting things. Every day, people at DigitalOcean think about how do we make it easier for our SMBs to innovate and solve the problems that they have so that they don't have to worry about it.
Okay, and what is the most important thing for your team to get accomplished? The focus for you is making it easier for them to actually consume your products, right?
Yep, totally. So this gets into North Stars, and I'm a huge fan of leveraging metrics and objectives to really anchor teams and what their purpose is and allow them to know they're doing well or not. As we mentioned earlier, I lead both the growth marketing and growth product side, which is a super powerful thing. So I'm accountable for two different key outputs, and my team therefore is two. One is self-serve revenue, with a particular focus on what we call month 1 to month 12 revenue, which is that early, getting people in, getting them to be successful, that sort of view. We were flattish in 2024 before we really got going, and I joined in end of August last year. And we now are at double-digit growth, and it's really accelerating nicely. So we can talk more about some of the key things there. The other is pipeline. So I mentioned the demand generation is a key part of what I do. And so there, we're really leveraging that self-serve or PLG engine to recognize who needs more support than what self-serve can offer. Make sure we get them connected with sales folks who can really drive and support that. And there's some people who are just ready out the gate. They know they're already outpacing self-serve. They're ready to talk to sales out the gate. And so we make sure that they find their way over to sales, get connected to the right person so that they can get what they need. So ultimately, self-serve revenue and pipeline, those are the North Stars for me and my crew.
Okay, and there's some interesting discussion about the myth that PLG knocks sales out of the process, but you touched on that. It is untrue, and I'd love for you to explain a little bit more about what you mean by recognizing the people who need a little bit more help.
Absolutely. So the way I like to phrase this is that absolutely self-serve and PLG will take the sales team's snacks and will give them a buffet in return, right? So when you have a self-serve PLG motion, you do have some dollars that are going to go outside the sales team. That is part of the purpose of it. But it does a couple of things that are really powerful. First, if you're finding that your business is in a state where it's fighting the mental model of your market, you're gonna have slower growth. And let me unpack that a bit. More and more and more people want to get their hands on the product, especially as the technology has furthered the ability for companies to do that, to allow people to get hands on. People want to do that. When they're doing their first evaluation of a company, what do? You go to the site, and more people then go click to sign up. It's part of how they decide if they want to talk to sales increasingly. And so, especially if it's something that's new that they're not familiar with, they'll do that. So if you don't have a growth team that's creating a stellar self-serve experience to allow them to confirm, oh yeah, I think I'm in the right place, you never see those leads. You never get that conversation. They're gone. They're going to someone else who has a better experience there. And so it's a really critical funnel into sales, again, if done right, because the critical thing you need to do is identify when you've got those people in your funnel and say, okay, this person is going to need sales support based on the kind of products that they seem interested in, based on their profile or the size of their company, et cetera. And so self-serve, absolutely, you're going to get some people who are credit card swiping and they're not engaging with sales right away, but sales doesn't often want to support those. Those are often smaller, simpler use cases, and their time is best spent with those other folks who have come in, tinkered, found some value, and a growth team can help build that bridge. The second part of this that's so critical is people who have come in and had that great self-serve experience already have momentum. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to sales teams who haven't partnered with a great growth team and a great self-serve experience, who love talking to customers and leads who already feel positive. They come into the conversation like, hey, I saw this. I'm super interested in it. I tried this out. Seems like it's going to work. Can you tell me more? That's such a different experience than, hey, I have this problem. Can you even solve it? It's the cold start versus the warm referral. Really powerful. So again, just to unpack that and take a step back, self-serve does take some revenue goes through that from sales, but if done right, if done well, it actually produces stronger leads with more momentum and empowers them to work with deals that they want to work with, the ones that are going to be higher value and spend more.
So, in other words, they shouldn't really be afraid of a growth team forming in their organization. I love what you said there, bring them snacks and you get a buffet in return.
Yeah.
It's more of a partnership. Is that accurate?
That's totally right. And actually, it's one of the motions we're really leaning into your deal because we have this really robust self-serve and PLG motion, and we're really leaning into identifying the ones who seem to be outpacing self-serve and could use a dedicated sales and technical resource to help them through. And it's been a really, really powerful motion for us. And I'll mention Amplitude is another good example. I was in Amplitude before. They were very sales-led growth. They had a free trial, which was really a big gap from going to free trial to a sales closed deal. This is the other thing that can happen with PLG, where it can be a great bridge between someone who's considering and really is a good fit to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or have a big bill, giving them a self-serve experience they can try and spend maybe a few $100s a month, a few $1,000s a month to tinker and prove it out, also really helps because it's a big, coming back to mindset and where people sit, it can be challenging to go from $0 in spend to right out the gate signing a contract. That can be a big leap, again, especially if it's new technology or they're not as familiar with it. But even if they are, even if that a referral, it can be a lot to justify and get someone to give them the budget. But what's really powerful is a nice POC that you can build in self-serve and being able to have that motion there present alongside, again, that great partnership with sales is very quite powerful.
And you mentioned that you're also running growth marketing, which is interesting, and it seems like it might be a unique setup. What are those advantages that you spoke of?
Yeah, it's a super great question. It's one of the reasons I joined DigitalOcean. I've led on the marketing side. Most of my career has been on the growth product side. I've never had both of them together. I've had the great fortune of having excellent partnerships with my marketing counterparts and when I was marketing with my product counterparts. But there's something just very different about having all those skill sets together, rowing directly together with the same strategy under the same leadership. It unlocks so many things. I actually just had an onsite with my staff last week and just hearing them be able to share their different perspectives and have the in-product experience marry up so well with the out-of-product experience. And one group that has one side of the coin saying, oh yeah, we'll run into this challenge, this will be hard. And the other saying, actually, we can solve that. Here's what we can do. It's so powerful. And it's something when I talk to other growth leaders, very often I'll hear, oh gosh, we'd really love to do this. We can't get engineering to prioritize it. That's usually from the marketing side. Or if they're on the R&D side, oh, we really are building these great onboarding experiences, but the emails that pair with this don't map with it at all. And it's just really hard to get alignment. Here at DO, where we've got it all together, it's coordinated. We've aligned goals. It's so much easier to have all of that force going together in the same direction. It's not often done. I've been at companies before where they know aspirationally they want to get there, but just those orgs, I mean, they sit under different C-suite often, right? There's sort of a CMO and a CPTO or CPO. And it's hard for, CPO doesn't want to, have engineering be outside of the engineering org. That's usually what the crux is there. And then marketing doesn't want to give up kind of revenue ownership or that sort of side or to CPO. So there's good reason why they don't merge, but there's so much alignment when you talk to growth leaders and even folks who prioritize growth at the C level that it's tricky to have us half the coin in one area, half the coin in another. And so, yeah, it's really powerful to have it all one here at DigitalOcean.
Yeah, and it sounds like your sales background has really served you well in understanding the perspectives of the sales team and probably the marketing team as well. So, do you refer to experiences that you had in your sales years?
Oh, totally. Like I said, I think that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. A lot of my friends are going to consulting companies, and going direct, someone went directly into product and in different areas that I thought, hey, maybe eventually I'd be interested in. But I got advice, if this is the time, if you don't start talking to customers now, unless you're going to make a career of it, which I didn't intend to make a career of it, then you'll never get back to it. And I do. I can relate to owning a quota. I can relate to having to sharing bad news with the customer. I can relate to being on the hook. I can relate to hearing, recognizing how powerful it is understanding customer problems and pain. There's so many things from that resonate and are critical to successful product management, to successfully partnering with teams who have quotas, are on the front lines, and those sorts of things. So, absolutely. And I think generally when it comes to growth, and even just generally product management, not even growth product management, it is a very, very powerful thing to have experience in multiple areas. At the end of the day, excellent product managers are people who really understand the customer target and the market they're going after. They really are wizards at understanding their pains and problems, and they build a roadmap against it. And if you think of those things, a lot of those first skill sets around market and customer understanding, it's a forcing function. You must develop those if you're on the go-to-market side. So PMs absolutely can develop those skills without being in go-to-market, but it's a powerful addition when you've been there. I'm a huge fan of cross-functional background PMs.
That's awesome. I want to ask you about experimentation, which tends to be a big component of any growth strategy. But it sounds like you've worked at companies where it's core to the mission of the company itself, like Amplitude, for example. So, how do you approach experimentation? How important is it to you as part of the planning?
Yeah. So let me share with you my favorite stat. And that's my absolute favorite. And I love stats. I'm a data person. So that stat is that at companies who measure the success rate of experiments that they ship, the success rate is like 20%. And this has been measured over and over again by companies who measure. I think Netflix is actually a 10% success rate. So these are high growth, very successful companies, and they fail 80% plus of the time. Failure here is just defined by what they believed would happen. We believed a change would drive to the metrics, doesn't manifest, doesn't happen. When you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. To successfully put something in front of customers that gives them value, you have to concretely understand their problem. You have to understand who has it. You have to be able to recognize when they have it so you can solve it at the right time. Then your solution has to actually solve that problem, has to be introduced in a way where they can find it, discover that it's even there. There's a timing component to that too. There's a messaging component to that too. Maybe it's a perfect solution, but they don't understand that it is. There's so many ways things can fail. So when you really unpack it, it makes sense. The reason I bring up the stat in the context of the question of how do I prioritize experimentation or why does it matter? How does it fold in? Well, knowing that if you don't test and you don't go through the validation exercise, probably the majority of what you're shipping and releasing is not actually driving value. And this is one of those stats, again, where it can cause people to feel depressed or, oh my gosh, I have a failure rate, what are we even doing here? What do I avoid this? And the answer is the facts of the facts. You can't avoid it. So instead, lean hard into it. Make it your competitive advantage that you know that and make it work for you. And how do you do that? You think about how do I make every experiment be a positive? How can I either win, like the metrics move as I intend, or learn so my next one can be effective? And so they make sure I'm investing in the right things. And two, how do I make sure we can experiment fast? How can I run a lot of experiments now? Can I fail fast, validate fast? And so if you take those sorts of approaches, then you can really beat what your competition is doing. Everybody's in that boat. It's not like some people have figured out how to crack it. It's just been proven over and over that that's not how it is. And I'll tell you from my experience, every time it is absolutely validated that well-documented metric. So what you can do, again, is just focus on more at-bats, validating faster, and asking yourself, does this have to be an A/B test? Because a lot of people equate experimentation with A/B testing and they view it as a one-to-one. But really, experimentation is just validation. That's all that it is. I have this belief about something. I don't know if it's true and I want to get an answer. I want to validate or invalidate it. And you can do that without doing the most expensive form of test, which is an A/B test. And so there's a lot of things that you can do there to really, again, make that stat work for you and operate better in that reality than others to make sure that you and your team are driving more value than people who don't know that fact or don't lean into it as a reality and therefore ship things that fail and they don't know.
Do you think most people are using some sort of a software application for their A/B tests, or are they doing it more in the category of validation, as you stated? And actually, if you could sort of tell us the difference between those two, that would probably be very helpful to a lot of people as well.
Yeah, why don't we start there, right? So A/B testing, super valuable form of experimentation, always something that is super insightful. But it can be more expensive, and especially depending on what you're doing, right? Sometimes it can involve engineers, product, design, time, right? So let's talk about just some examples of where there's other forms of validation. So for example, let's say you have a hypothesis that your onboarding experience isn't clear. There's a lot of friction in it. And maybe you've talked to a few customers, which is always great, to learn what specifically those might be. So you have a better idea of what the concrete problems are. When you go in to try to figure out, okay, what's the better UX? Option A, which I would not advocate for, is you just go straight to the A/B test. Why is that? First of all, why would that not be the fastest way to validate? One is, as we just talked about, experiments often fail. And so it'd be a lot of your engineers got to build it, your design team has to build it, has to build the designs, your engineer has to ship in product, maybe some data analysts are doing some analysis, and then you also have the time to wait for it to validate. Here's an alternative. You mock something up, especially with AI, that's super fast and easy to do. But even without that, over the last several years before that, still relatively easy, certainly faster than building it, shipping it in production, is super straightforward. Take that, put it in front of four people who you are targeting, and see what they say. And what's going to happen, especially in that first round, is they're going to be like, huh, oh, that does that. Oh, I didn't know that. Or, huh, I'm still stuck on this. And oh, and I really like that. Now, what does that give you? It gives you tons of concrete validation and invalidation about assumptions you're making, that experience you've created. And so that actually allows you to sharpen the pencil, sharpen the pencil, sharpen the pencil. So by the time you get to the A/B test, you've already validated and invalidated several of your hypotheses. So you're putting something out that's strong. So by validating and invalidating through other means, cheaper means, faster means, you're getting that out of the way and early, and you're able to see more impact to metrics through the higher investment kind of vehicles. Another great one that I always suggest is, and this goes for growth product and any product manager, oftentimes the first thing that you need to validate is, would someone use this if it existed? Would they even be interested in this thing? And you can evaluate and validate or invalidate that without building a single lick of that product. You can do something like put something into the product that into your UX or experience and say, hey, do you want to try this? Or okay, would this see here to learn about X, whatever that product is. You just see how many people click on it. If it's super valuable, you'll see people banging down the door of that link. It's what we call it, a painted door test. They'll go check it out to see it. And that's where you can say, hey, we've been thinking about building this. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So from a customer perspective, it's still, there's still value in it. They can learn that you're thinking about it. On your end, it's massively valuable because if nobody clicks on it and nobody wants it, phew, good you didn't build that product, right? Because you didn't even have people who want it in the first place. And just recognizing that, again, when it comes to building great product, growth and core, it starts with, is there a problem? And that you can often validate much faster than building the solution and product. So coming back to the core question here on experimentation, remembering that experimentation is just about validation and validation, remembering that most of our hypotheses are going to be wrong. So therefore choosing the right kind of validation and validation to fit the hypotheses that you have and doing that as fast as possible. That's how you win here with a stat like that, and how you be so much stronger and better than other folks who are trying to do the same thing as you by just leaning into that and being smart about how you leverage experimentation.
So is there a point at which you feel like you have enough validation and you would move into a full-on A/B test, maybe to protect the investment or something like that, to build something that's got a complexity level, or it's going to be very disruptive to the team or something like that? Like, what are those criteria that mean it's probably time to put it into a real A/B test and take the extra effort?
Yeah, I mean, and this is where it's a little art and it's a little science, right? Which is how I describe all of growth generally. And so, let's go back to our examples. So where there's a team and they have a hypothesis about onboarding, and they've let's say they went and they created that mock, that interactive mock, and they had a few customers, for target customers, walk through it. From that experience, you're going to have a sense of how close you were to the mark. If those, let's say, 4 calls, and I'm deliberately using four, there's some really good stats around how talking to three, I think it's actually three people's inflection point, three people of your target market can give you good insight. I always think of four as a golden rule for that first validation. When you get out of those calls, you can get a really good sense of, am I generally in the right spot or am I generally not? If those calls and those mock interviews, if they are all like, I actually think the other one is better. I don't know how this doesn't really solve my problem. That lets you know you got to try again. If you A/B tested that, probably not going to succeed given the qualitative feedback you're getting. Whereas if you're hearing, oh my gosh, if I had this, I could have done that, or oh, this makes it so clear, or you're getting just, oh, this is so amazing that you've done this step for me. When you hear more of that positive qualitative feedback, that can be your sign, okay, I'm ready to A/B test it. So you really use the early validation exercise to basically build your confidence level. And say, okay, and you got to always assume especially with the first test before you've done any validation, you got to assume you're in that 20/80 failure bucket, right? And validation just helps you gauge where you sit. And so again, I say art and science because there's no like, hey, yep, if you hear these 5 words from people, you know it's ready to run. It's a lot more, hey, answer honestly, like look at how his interviews went. Did this meaningfully solve their problem or give them a better experience? And the more you're thinking, yeah, I did hear that, the more you're going to be leaning into doing an A/B test. And the more that you're hearing, oh, it's not quite there yet, or this is much more common, this happens, or hey, these things validated, these things did not. So I actually should go back, fix those things, then try again. Those are the kind of ways that you approach it. So again, you never ever can remove that fun experience we all have where you run an A/B test you feel good about and it fails. It's impossible. But you can, by validating early, you can improve your win rate there.
I was wondering if you could give us a general example of something that you have experimented with that turned out to be correct and how you implemented it after the validation and the experimentation was complete.
Yeah, for sure. I always like to talk about surprises in this bucket too, because it's really easy to talk about things that folks have experienced before and it doesn't change their viewpoint. And also, there's a few areas where I'm constantly surprised, and it's a good reminder to me too. Here's one that shipped this week. There's often a notion that in order to have big returns, you need a big bet. Big investment leads to big returns. And yes, small things lead to small wins. And it's just my reminder and everyone's reminder, small things can have big returns. Don't forget that sometimes it's the color changes, it's the little things that can make the difference. That's why it's so critical that be a part of your portfolio and your experimentation roadmap. So this is a real test that we ran. If you go to DigitalOcean.com, if you go to the drop list page, product page, you will see a little animation that just shows you the product. That's it. It's just a little animation that shows you actually what the droplet product looks like if you were to sign up and go to that page. That's the only difference. The control version of that just doesn't have the animation. The increase in conversion rate from the one with the animation, this is an A/B test and measuring specifically visits to the page to completing sign up, is 25%, 25% increase, right? And I'm surfacing this. It's to be clear for those listening, that is a very atypical response, atypical metric impact. That is very, very high. So certainly don't expect that every time you run small things. But it's just a reminder that why it's so important that you are always testing and experimenting. This came from a team who's solely focused on really these small things every week. What are the changes we make to our website to improve the experience just from this week? Just one general tenet is just always be testing and always be leaning into the incremental. Maybe another one small one that's good is to think through just surprises, things that are shocking or are completely counterintuitive. This is another one from this month. We added a new payment method, which is a new different way to pay DigitalOcean when you sign up, because some people like to use a variety of things. And we actually added it, and it harmed conversion rate to payment. Totally counterintuitive. We have some hypotheses. We think maybe it was just sort of analysis paralysis, or maybe people didn't know that one and made them interested because it's new. And so then they got on that path. So Just another reminder too that yes, small wins can be effective. Never let go of those. Always be testing. But then also you got to test even when it seems like it's going to win because sometimes it just doesn't. And it really can unearth super valuable insights like, oh, maybe we're offering too many, or maybe we're not offering in a clear way, or maybe we need to give explainers on net new payments so they know what that is and they can get the answer quickly instead of leaving the page. With the advent of AI and how easy it is now to build prototypes, especially for the early phases of product validation and product experience, I think that PM should be experimenting more than ever. It's easier than ever to get to stay close to your customer. I think that's going to be a huge unlock for PMs that lean into that and leverage that.
I was going to segue into asking you how you think PM work is changing. AI is all over the place. There are a lot of changes going on in the market in general. As a person working in tech, what are you seeing out there in terms of the core function of that role?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm going to start with what hasn't changed, because sometimes when everything changes so much, it can feel like the whole thing's unearthed. But here's what hasn't changed. The best PMs understand who they're going after. Whose problem am I trying to solve? Is it these kind of customers, these kind of users, these kind of customers? There's so many different kinds of segments of the market you can go after. And it starts with that. Two, understanding their pain like the back of your hand. What do they struggle with? What do they wake up worrying about? What stresses them out, blocks them from their success? Great PMs know those things. And then their roadmap is oriented around solutioning for those problems, deeply anchored in that. Now, on top of that, so that's always been the same, right? And then being smart about how and ideally thinking about their resources cleverly. And there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. But those things don't change. What the technology shifts and what AI has brought to the table is a PM's ability to really accelerate their understanding of what's actually solving problems. So we talked about prototyping, how PMs more and more can do some of the early stage stuff that used to require the whole tripod, right, of engineering, product, and design. More of that now is available for PMs to do with AI tools. And so they're able to validate, invalidate faster, better. They're able, like I said, to understand customer problems better, faster. And so it really, I think the thing that stays the same is that backbone of understanding your customer, understanding their problem, and then building solutions. But what's changed is PM's ability to do that faster, do that better, and do that without having as many dependencies as they used to have. My advice that I give lately to PMs is one of the best things you can do to uplevel yourself is be aware of the tools that are out there. It just starts with awareness. Listen to podcasts like this one. There's several others out there that I highly recommend. Reforge is great for learning. Lenny's is great. There's AI conferences that are great. Make it a priority to learn what's out there. B, take a look at the tools you have. All of them are coming out with AI features functionality. That tends to be an easy thing to do. Use those, test those, try those. And then third, when you hear about a tool that's exciting, it can feel daunting. I don't have the time. Find the time, make the time, put your hands on those tools. It's shocking how easy they can be to use once you just get the hang of it. So a lot of the blockage I see with PMs right now who haven't jumped into that comes from their own internal perceptions of how hard it's going to be. I just encourage you, just do, and you'll be shocked by how quickly your assumptions break down. I think that the core tenets of the role, which is understanding customer problems and solving those problems with product, I think that sticks, right? And that stays. Right. I think the additional skill set perhaps that would be added to the list given the environment is just adaptability. I think PMs who are ready to be adaptable, in addition to being strong in understanding customer problems and then solving for those things, are going to see more success than those who kind of stick with what's familiar, because there are so many new doors that are open now. And so people who are adaptable and open to that change are going to benefit from that. And those who struggle with it and don't take the time to break that down, they might get a bit left behind. And so it's part of why I always advocate for that. Don't let your mind get in the way of your success. Like, just go for it.
So I only have one more question. We often get feedback that this is what people are most interested in. They want to know, how can I be a good leader?
Yeah.
So what is the best way to cultivate skills in leadership?
Yeah. So there's two pieces of advice that I'll give. One is just lean in to North Star metrics. I very often see teams struggle, just so the fact that they don't know what exactly concretely is their objective. Can't tell you how many times I hear from leaders, oh, it's really clear. This is what we're doing. And then the team is like, I don't know what, like we have 10 things. I don't know what actually matters. I love numbers. Metrics are key. There's no question around those. Like having a clear scorecard with the top North Star here, this is the primary, can go a really long way. So for those of you who are aspiring to get into that leadership role, make sure you're operating in that way where you're really concrete about what is my primary goal, what is the number one thing I'm trying to do, and then have your underlying KPIs and all those things. But that allows you to really communicate clearly up and out what you're doing. And then it also really guides your hand in prioritization and people partnering with you. That is a powerful skill to bring into leadership, that ruthless prioritization and focus. The second thing that I'll mention, which I think is a little bit tangential, but I think is also super important, is often people who aspire to be leaders are thinking, what's my path? How do I get there? I would just say that the superpower that you have as a non-leader, for those folks who aspire to be leaders, is that you are going to be closer to the customers. The more senior you get, the less often that you talk to customers. It's probably something all of us who are leaders should change, but I've just, again, seen that pattern. The new people who are in the market, they don't have as much closeness to the customer that you would as someone who is in a non-leadership role. And you therefore are operating in their blind spot. You are going to have insights they're not going to have. You're going to capture market trends faster than they might. My own biggest career growth experiences have come from leaning into that advantage that I had and then surfacing that up, not only acting on it in my own role and letting that guide my hand. And this is in product and marketing roles, regardless of the role, but then also going the extra step of raising it, surfacing it. And I guarantee you, you bring customer insights information that your leadership does not have, because they won't have them, not in the way that you can, they will listen. So the two things there: operate like a leader, and specifically that means being super focused around the metrics that matter, inclusive of what is your primary North Star metric. You demonstrate that, you show that will bring an organic, strong skill set to you when you become a leader, and it also will allow you to better articulate why you should be one. And then two, for those aspiring to be it, stay close to the customer, understand the insights and what's going on in that space, and raise it up. Boosts your visibility, improves your own work, and allows you to potentially shape the company in a way that people want leaders to do.
Sounds like taking some initiative there with regard to boosting the visibility and making sure that you're putting the information out there once you've gathered it is possibly a third one.
Yeah, totally.
Make your own rain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I said, when you have, the key there is that you have information that is valuable for others. There was no platform when I was at Twilio to raise these sorts of insights, and I just created it. I started small. I just shared a weekly I called it voice of the customer kind of output, and more people wanted to be on that email. And then that turned into a quarterly live meeting where I went through the key insights from the quarter, which then the CEO ended up attending, and all of product were required to go. That very much started with something small, which is just me paying attention to customers, understanding the insights, operating the blind spot of a lot of leaders, and then just taking the initiative to share it out. Again, if you have those insights that are so powerful, people will want to hear that. That's something that gives you some of the platform and visibility that you want.
Absolutely love it. That is so actionable as well. There's no mystery there, and it also is not about AI or any of the newfangled stuff coming out. It's back to basics. So thank you so much. This is really awesome.
This podcast is an original production of Women in Product. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Women in Product YouTube channel. Leave us a review so that others can discover us, or share this episode with someone you know. Original music provided by Jenny Hahn. Thanks for joining.